Mixed signals feel confusing, but the truth is deeper than confusion. They feel familiar. They feel like a rhythm your nervous system already knows. Someone pulls you close, then pulls away. They text you late at night, but disappear the next morning. They give you warmth in one breath and distance in the next. And somehow, those contradictions make them even harder to let go of. You don't fall for their behavior. You fall for the meaning your body attaches to it. The uncertainty, the chase, the tiny bursts of attention that feel like clarity. This video explains the psychology behind why mixed signals feel magnetic and why the people who confuse you often become the people you can't stop thinking about. Mixed signals feel magnetic for a reason, and it's deeper than attraction. The moment someone pulls you close and then pulls away, something in you wakes up. Not confusion, but a familiar instinct. An instinct your body learned long before you ever stepped into adulthood. When someone likes you in one moment and turns distant in the next, your mind doesn't experience this as chaos. It experiences it as a pattern, one your nervous system is already trained to interpret. A pattern that whispers, if you can just understand this correctly, you might finally earn the closeness you want. Psychology has a name for this pull: intermittent reinforcement, the same reward schedule that makes slot machines addictive. It isn't steady affection that hooks you, and it isn't constant rejection. It's the unpredictable rhythm of maybe. A warm text at night, a sudden compliment, a spark of attention that feels almost intimate, followed by silence. Your brain doesn't fall for the person, it falls for the possibility they represent. Every small moment of warmth becomes proof that the connection could be real if you just hold on a little longer. This is why clarity sometimes feels bland, while inconsistency feels electrifying. Your nervous system begins to chase the next dose of hope, not love, because escaping uncertainty feels like survival. But underneath this reaction is a quieter truth, one that rarely feels connected to romance at all. You've lived this pattern before. If you grew up around unpredictable love caregivers, who were warm on some days and overwhelmed on others, your body learned that closeness comes in waves. That affection must be earned. That emotional safety is something you work for, not something freely given. So when an adult gives you mixed signals, your system doesn't panic. It recognizes the rhythm, the waiting, the hoping, the small bursts of connection followed by distance. For someone raised in consistency, mixed signals feel unsafe. But for someone shaped by inconsistency, mixed signals feel like home. Not because the person is right for you, but because the pattern feels familiar, and familiarity feels like love. And once that old pattern is awakened, it pulls you deeper, especially when it begins stirring something even more vulnerable beneath the surface. When that old pattern becomes activated, something subtle begins to happen inside you. You don't just want closeness, you want clarity. And clarity becomes the prize your mind believes this person can give you. This is one of the core truths behind mixed signals. You're not actually drawn to the person themselves. You're drawn to the uncertainty they create. Uncertainty sharpens your focus. It heightens your sensitivity. It makes every message, every pause, every breath feel meaningful. Because when connection feels unpredictable, your mind fills the gaps with imagination. You begin analyzing texts like puzzles. You replay moments, trying to understand the shift in their tone. You create entire emotional theories based on a single change in their behavior. This isn't desperation. This is your nervous system trying to solve something that feels unsolved. Mixed signals pull you into a psychological loop called the uncertainty effect, where the brain overestimates the value of anything it cannot fully predict. A predictable person doesn't send your system into overdrive, but someone who is warm one day and distant the next triggers both sides of your attachment instincts, your desire for closeness and your fear of losing it. This combination is intoxicating. The uncertainty becomes the emotional currency of the relationship. The days they pull away feel like tests. The days they come close feel like victory. And somewhere inside you, the story shifts. If you can just decode their signals, if you can just show up the right way, if you can just not mess it up, then maybe the inconsistency will finally resolve into something real. But the truth, the painful truth, is that uncertainty creates artificial attachment. The intensity you feel isn't a sign of compatibility. It's a sign that your system is trying to regulate something it never had control over. This is why mixed signals feel like chemistry, even when they aren't. Because what you're experiencing isn't connection, it's emotional gambling. And the more uncertain the outcome becomes, the more your mind tries to win something that was never guaranteed in the first place. But this chase opens the door to an even deeper pattern, one that reveals what your heart is trying to heal every time you attach to someone who confuses you. The reason mixed signals feel so powerful is not simply because they create uncertainty. It's because that uncertainty touches something tender in you, something unfinished, something your heart has been carrying for years without language. Mixed signals don't create the wound. They activate the wound. Most people assume they're attracted to the person, the chemistry, or the potential of the relationship. But what actually keeps you invested is the part of you that still hopes an old wound can finally be resolved. When someone is inconsistent, it stirs the same question you learned to wrestle with in childhood. What do I need to do so someone doesn't pull away from me? That question becomes a quiet ache lodged inside your emotional memory. And mixed signals bring that ache back to life, not because the person is special, but because the pattern is familiar. Your heart recognizes the script, reaching for closeness, receiving it briefly, then losing it again. And each repetition of that rhythm awakens the younger version of you who still believes that if they try hard enough, they can earn love in a way they couldn't before. This is why you feel such a strong pull to prove yourself to someone who sends mixed signals. Their inconsistency mirrors the emotional conditions under which you first learned what love felt like. Not steady, not secure, but conditional. A part of you thinks, if I can win this person over, maybe it means I was never unworthy to begin with. It's not a conscious thought. It's an emotional instinct, a reflex born from unfinished pain. This makes mixed signals feel incredibly personal, even when they aren't. The person isn't rejecting you. They're simply reenacting a pattern they learned, too. But your heart interprets it as a chance to rewrite your history. This is why walking away feels harder than it should. It's not just losing them, it's losing the hope that this time the ending will be different. And once this wound is activated, it begins driving a deeper cycle of attachment. One where the more unavailable someone becomes, the more your heart tries to win the love it never fully received. This is the moment where mixed signals stop being confusing and start becoming emotionally addictive. Next comes the pattern most people never realize they've fallen into, and it's the reason mixed signals feel impossible to escape. When mixed signals become emotionally addictive, you step into a pattern that psychologists call the push-pull dynamic. And this is where the attachment becomes stronger than your logic, your boundaries, or your intentions. In a push-pull dynamic, you're constantly shifting between two emotional states, chasing closeness and bracing for distance. This back and forth creates an internal tension that feels like passion, but it's actually survival mode disguised as chemistry. Here's why it's so powerful. Every time they pull away, your nervous system panics. And every time they come close, your nervous system calms down. This cycle of distress relief, is the exact psychological mechanism behind trauma bonds. Not because the relationship is traumatic, but because the emotional rhythm mimics the unpredictable love you've known before. Your brain releases stress hormones when they withdraw, then dopamine when they return. The contrast becomes intoxicating. The relief becomes addictive. You start believing that temporary moments of warmth mean something profound, not because they are inherently special, but because your body is so overwhelmed with anxiety that any reassurance feels like a rescue. This is why people describe mixed signal relationships as intense or unlike anything else. It's not the person, it's the biochemical roller coaster. And in this roller coaster, a dangerous belief begins to form. If they come back, it means the connection is real. You start waiting for their next message, their next apology, their next moment of softness, not out of hope, but out of withdrawal. You're no longer craving the person. You're craving the emotional relief that only they seem to trigger. And this is how the push-pull cycle keeps you entangled. The more inconsistent they become, the harder you try to hold on. This isn't weakness. This is your nervous system trying to stabilize uncertainty the only way it knows how. But the deeper you sink into this cycle, the more the relationship stops being about connection and starts becoming about regulation. And this is the turning point most people never recognize. The moment when the relationship stops being about them and starts being about the emotional wound they unknowingly awaken. What comes next is the hidden pattern that keeps you believing this time will be different, even when nothing changes. When a relationship begins revolving around the wound it awakens in you, something subtle starts to blur. You no longer feel like you're reacting to them. You feel like you're reacting to something inside yourself. Something stirred, something old, something unfinished. And in that blurred space, emotional tension starts to feel like emotional depth. The confusion, the longing, the overthinking, the way your stomach drops when their energy shifts. You start interpreting these sensations as signs of a profound connection, as if the intensity itself is evidence that something meaningful must be happening between you. But emotional tension is not emotional depth. It's what happens when your nervous system is activated, not when your heart is understood. Mixed signals create a kind of emotional static. You're always reading between the lines, searching for hidden meaning, trying to soften every sudden silence. And because you're constantly trying to understand them, it begins to feel like you deeply know them. But what you truly know is your own anxiety. You start mistaking the exhaustion for investment, the racing thoughts for chemistry, the emotional overwhelm for proof that the relationship holds extraordinary weight. This is why people often say, "I've never felt this way before." They're right not because the person is rare, but because the emotional chaos is familiar in a way they've never examined. A new wound hurts. An old wound feels like destiny. When someone pulls away, the ache feels personal, even when it isn't. Their inconsistency taps into a story you've lived before, a story that taught you to work for closeness, to earn affection, to prove your worth by holding on through uncertainty. And every time they come back, even briefly, the tension breaks. You feel relief. You feel hope. You feel like the connection has deepened, when, in reality, only the emotional cycle has deepened. That cycle convinces you that the relationship is special, when really, it's your attachment to the resolution you're hoping to feel. This is how mixed signals pull you in so tightly, not through the promise of real intimacy, but through the emotional storm that feels impossible to walk away from. And as that storm gathers, something even more delicate begins to surface inside you. A longing not just for them, but for the version of you who no longer needs uncertainty to feel wanted. That longing, the one for a version of yourself who doesn't need uncertainty to feel wanted, is the quiet center of this entire pattern. It's the part of you that feels almost impossible to name, and yet it's the real reason mixed signals hold you so tightly. You're not just hoping they will choose you, you're hoping the wounded part of you will finally feel chosen too. Mixed signals tap into the softest place inside you, the place that learned love in an environment where you were never fully sure if you were enough. Inconsistency doesn't just activate fear. It awakens the child in you who was shaped by unpredictability, emotional distance, or conditional affection. When someone pulls away, it touches the old belief, I must have done something wrong. And when they come close again, it whispers, maybe I'm finally getting it right. This is why you hold on. Not because the relationship is healthy, stable, or aligned, but because leaving feels like abandoning the part of you that still needs proof you were never too difficult, too demanding, or too easy to walk away from. You're not staying for the connection. You're staying for the redemption arc your heart quietly hopes this person will provide. Every moment of closeness feels like emotional victory. Every cold moment feels like emotional failure. And the highs and lows begin to merge into something that feels like destiny. But this has nothing to do with destiny. It's repetition. Mixed signals recreate the blueprint you learned long ago. A blueprint where love was earned, affection was inconsistent, and your emotional worth depended on someone else's mood or availability. So when an adult mirrors this pattern, it feels familiar. And familiarity feels safe, even when it's painful. This is why mixed signals feel so deeply personal. They echo the original wound. Not the wound of romantic rejection, but the wound of childhood uncertainty. The feeling of never fully knowing whether love would stay. And here's the truth most people never see until the pattern breaks. You're not hoping they will finally choose you. You're hoping that by winning their love, you will finally quiet the fear that you are unchosen by default. This is the emotional core of mixed signal attraction. It is not weakness. It is not self-sabotage. It is an old longing asking to be healed. A longing for a love that doesn't disappear when you reach for it. Mixed signals don't reveal anything about your worth. They reveal the places inside you still waiting to feel safe. You weren't drawn to inconsistency because you're broken, needy, or naive. You were drawn to it because it echoed the version of love you once had to survive. The version that taught you to hope through uncertainty. But you're allowed to outgrow that story. You're allowed to want a love that doesn't make you guess. A love that doesn't disappear when you reach for it. A love that feels like rest, not rescue. And if this video helped you name even a small part of your experience, you're already closer to the version of you who no longer confuses intensity with intimacy, and finally chooses peace over mixed signals.